Tom Vasel's top 100 games of all time. Some say that Tom is like a giant among men. Others say he's a little obsessed.
Yeah! I don't even have a top 10.
Tom Vasel's top 100 games of all time.
All right, welcome. This is really exciting because we are now in the top 20. And honestly, of the games that I'm talking about today, they really could be in the top 10. The only reason they're not is because the top 10 only has room for 10 games. And in fact, let me see. Of the 10 games we're going to talk about today, at least 4 of them have been in the top 10 at some point. And they were knocked out because, again, there's just only so much room. So honestly, while I have a top 10, these games are almost as good, and I will gladly play these games all the time, anytime, in different situations. Lots of fun games. I'm very excited about these. So instead of talking about how excited I am, let's talk about the games.
Number 20, Cash Dumps.
I really like this game, especially with its expansion, Yakuza. Cash and Guns is a game that I can play all over the place. I played at conventions, I played at parties, I played with my friends, and it always is such a big hit. It's not a very long game, and there's some variants which almost change the game completely, especially if you play with the hidden policeman in the group. But just the basic idea is so simple. It's basically a bluffing game. Is there a bullet in the gun that I'm pointing at you? Is there something? I don't know how the sword one makes sense, but it's silly fun. And it's entertaining, and the situations when everyone's pointing guns at each other, you just want to take a snapshot of those moments because everyone looks around at each other with serious looks on their face, and then almost every time everyone bursts out laughing because one guy has 5 guns pointed at him or 2 people have guns right at each other. It's silly fun. In fact, it's one of my favorite gangster-style games that there is out there, and that's Cash and Guns.
Number 19, War of Endine.
This is a very high debut for a game, War of Endines, and in fact, as soon as I played it last year, I played it just shortly after top 100, and I said, man, this game is definitely going in my top 100. Now, this is a game that I bet many of you haven't heard about, and that's a shame. War of Endines, which is a battle con game, is a kind of like a Street Fighter style game where you take 2 people of very different, I mean, we're talking very different abilities and strengths and weaknesses, and you fight each other. You have a little board, and they're going back and forth and hitting each other. But at the same time, you're playing different cards, and those cards will determine how far you move. They will determine what kind of special attack you do. And you have a set of cards, and you're combining them together. So you have different combinations of cards that you have to play. So not only are you trying to outguess what your opponent's going to do, but you have these cards that you can play. And the game has variants with super abilities that you can play. If there's a game that really feels like a 2-player video game, this is that. But what I think I like best about War of Endines is the fact that the people really feel different. I mean, you have your one guy who walks in and he's a tank and just takes and bashes and smashes people up. But then you have the person who has to leap around out of the way, or another person who has a little familiar helping them fight, and it's really entertaining. And I love the fact that there's so many different characters. They have expansion characters. I love to see another set, and the artwork is great. Again, if you like 2-player back and forth games, this game takes, I don't know, I want to say that a typical game takes 15 to 20 minutes unless you're really involved, and go up to 30. But when you play the game during that time frame, it's a really involved, fun back and forth game. An experienced player will beat someone who's not played before, but well, that's enough raving about this one. If you haven't gotten this one, certainly check it out, War of Endines.
Number 18, Twilight Struggle, 1989.
And I'm cheating this year, having 2 games that are tied. But it's really difficult to tell which of these I like better. If you forced me to get rid of one of them, I would probably get rid of 1989 because Twilight Struggle, the theme, is much more important to me. But 1989 at the same time is a really well designed game. Both games are very similar. I mean, they have one of the designers is the same. Well, at least, I'm sorry, Jason Matthews had input in 1989, but it was definitely inspired by this game. They're both card-driven games. They're both political games, and they both take place on things that really happened in history and things that, in this case, I know a whole lot about. Didn't know so much about in this one, but they both happened in my lifetime, or at least parts of them. And to me, well, 89 I guess happened completely in my lifetime, but to me that makes it very fascinating. They're definitely longer, more involved two-player games, and I don't get either one of them to the table as much because of that, but when I do, it's a completely fulfilling experience. I really feel like I'm reliving history. There's a lot of war games out there with long and complicated charts. These games seem complex, but once you play them, they really aren't, and yet the history still comes through. I really can't recommend these highly enough. I know they're not for everyone, and I know not everyone enjoys them, but if you haven't played either one, I would certainly recommend trying. Well, I would try Twilight Struggle first, probably for people who've never played them before, but definitely give them a whirl, and you will have a dose of history and wish that your history teacher had used these in class.
Number 17, Agricola.
Farming! How interesting! Well, yeah, obviously it's interesting enough that it would make number 17 on my list. Agricola. Now, there is another game by the same designer that I like a little bit better than Agricola, and Aura and Labora made a big splash this year, and there's a lot of different things. But what is neat about Agricola is two things for me. One is my copy is so tricked out. I mean, when you open this up here, I have cases of little wooden pieces, of little wooden sheep, of fences and people, and I got a little case here of stones to use for stones. I got all the extra pieces that they've sold. Not all of them, but a lot of them, I guess. I mean, and when I bring this out, it just looks gorgeous on the table. So that's great. Secondly, it's just the theme, even though it is about farming, makes sense to people. When they play Agricola, they're like, oh, yeah, that's right. I do this to do this. I plant the crops here, the crops grow. I put sheep over here, the sheep have babies. It just all works together. And the family version is good. If I just had played the family version, it would have made my top 100. I would have enjoyed the game. It would have made my top 200 probably. But when you add in the full game with the occupations and the improvements that you can do, then the game becomes terrific, especially if you draft them. There's so many different combinations. There's so many cards out there. There's so many cards out there right now that I can't even keep track of them all. But there's enough. I don't even need more. There's enough in this game. Actually, I think I have all my cards for the game in this box here. Yeah, these are all the cards that I have. And oh yeah, look, my little starting person. There's just so much in this game. I have to keep it in this box and this box. But when we play it and we play the cards, every game is a different experience. And if you know me, that is something I definitely like in a board game. So, Agricola.
Number 16, Faces.
For those of you who are sick of hearing about party games, this is the last one on my list, Faces. And unfortunately for most of you, I have to be careful when I recommend this one because this copy of Faces is not available in stores. Faces you can find probably at thrift shops and such, but my Faces has all sorts of weird faces that I have just found on the internet, and I made custom cards. So I have a really cool version of Faces with hundreds and hundreds of cards. I should probably get the rights to some of these pictures and kickstart this sucker, huh? But I really like Faces. My custom copy, so the way this is going to work is you have to find me at a convention and say, can we play your custom copy of Faces? Because I always bring it. But Faces is just, I like apples to apples. And you saw that apples to apples was on my list with the words. But Faces, you can, every time I played Faces, people are yelling and saying, look at that guy. You can tell that he's a serial killer. Look at that woman. You can tell that she's secretly hiding this. Or, you know, and the back and forth, the talking and the laughter I get from Faces far blows away anything I've gotten from other games. So, hey, in a couple weeks I'll be at Board Game Geek Con, and I will have this there so you can play it with me. But Even the original game Faces was a good game, although I don't know if it would have made my top 100. Add in these extra pictures and mind-blowing. But again, you're probably getting irritated that you can't pick this game up, so let's move on to the next one.
15, Dominion.
Dominion, the game of a million cards. I like Dominion a lot. There's a lot of different cards that are available for the game. Its latest expansion, Dark Ages, just came out, which although that did not propel it up my list at all, but it does have some great expansions. Prosperity, this one, best expansion. And Seaside, oh, great expansion. But anyhow, there's a ton of cards out there, and there's a ton of deck building games that have come after Dominion. And it's interesting, you know, what of influence Dominion has had. It is certainly not the most thematic of games. I mean, really, it's almost, I wouldn't say it's non-thematic. There's several cards in the game that have theme to them, but it's really not there like it is in other deck building games. But the way it plays so quickly, it's so fast and fun, it is one that I enjoy quite a bit, and I probably played it more than any other deck building game I have. I enjoy playing quick games with my daughter, my wife. I enjoy playing games with people who have never played before, with people who have played before. It just works. And again, this is one of my weaknesses. They're games that have a lot of options. So the fact that I will never in my life play the same 10 cards, likely, is just absolutely great to me. That means I'll never play the exact same game, and I love that. So that's one of the reasons I like Dominion, but another one is just for its ease of play, and it really is a well-designed, crafted game. So hooray for Dominion. Command and Colors. This is only one out of 4 boxes that I have of this. There's so much going on. Although, honestly, for setup, if I included the fact that you have to put stickers on all the pieces, this wouldn't make my top 1,000, I think. But Command and Colors is a great game. It's based on the Commands and Colors system that Richard Borg has done, which includes Battle Line, Battle Cry, Battle Lore, Memoir 44, there's a new Samurai game, Abaddon has kind of roots in this. There's a lot of games based on this system, but this one does some things better than the rest of them, especially line formation, hold the line, the amount of diversity, and just the immense amount of history that you get from these. I love reading Mr. Borg's notes when he talks about this scenario and this scenario. These are just really fantastic scenarios, and there's so many ancient battles, and I'm guessing this system's going to keep coming out with extra stuff for a long time to come. This is a war game. It really is. It's a light one compared to many, but I think it accurately simulates many of these ancient battles, and it lets you use elephants, which is a cool thing too. It looks really good set up, and it plays well, and it probably has deeper gameplay than any other game in this series. So, big fan of this one, Commands and Colors Ancients.
Number 13, Yomi.
Oh, Yomi made my list last year. And now a lot of people with Yomi, really the question was, for me, how does it compare to War of Indines, which I talked about? Well, obviously Yomi won that battle, but you can also see they're both in the top 20, so both fantastic games. I might even want to play War of Indines more than Yomi, but it's hard to beat just how cleverly and well-balanced, I mean, more balanced than almost any other game in existence these decks are. And I'm really looking forward to the 10 new decks that are coming out eventually for Yomi. There are 10 characters that you can get in this set, or you can just buy a couple decks and have fun. And it is essentially rock, paper, scissors on a grandiose scale and done with a combat back and forth between 2 people. The decks are all different. They have their special abilities. The game plays very quickly, has some really nice artwork. It's based on the same universe that Puzzle Strike is and Flash Duel, which I talked about earlier. Yomi is just an excellent game, and I like it a lot, which, you know, I've noticed that so far on this list I've had many, many 2-player games. Ooh, that's not about to change.
Number 12, Dark Truck Keep Captain.
Now again, And don't read anything that this was, what was this last year? Number 9 and now it's 12. It's a 3-spot difference and this is, wow. I love Star Trek Fleet Captains. You know, there's Star Trek is a universe that I like. I don't love it. I mean, I love Star Wars, but I like, ooh, yes, 3 more Star Wars movies. Yes, I don't care who hates it. I think it's fantastic. But anyway, Star Trek Fleet Captains is a game that, even though I just like Star Trek, I love this game because it takes the series, the movies, and everything and puts them into a game. You can complain that the tiles are thin. They are. You can complain that the ships are badly designed. They aren't. They're fantastic. But what you can't complain about is that every step in this game, I never feel like I'm doing a mechanic. I feel like I'm doing something from the Star Trek universe. And look at this, the Romulan Empire. And now I haven't put up a full review of this one yet, and I will soon. And I'm very excited about this one. But what you get to do in this game is you get to take ships like these and fly them around the board and put different captains and different people from all the movies on these and fight other people, or go out and explore things, or do missions of subterfuge and strategy. And you can do all of that. Yeah, it can go 2, 3, 4 players, but in essence, this is, like I said, another 2-player game. But wow, when we're done, we just played an episode of Star Trek. Actually, we played a whole season, probably, of Star Trek. And I'm excited to see what the next game is going to be like. And that's not common for many games, because many games you talk about, this was an excellent mechanic when you did this and this here. In this one you go, that was really cool when I blew up the Enterprise, or when the Enterprise managed to do that, or we found the cloak ship over there, and those all the tribbles. You know, all kinds of things can happen in this game, and they're all fun.
Number 11, Ha.
And I just finished talking about Agricola, and here's the game I like a little bit better than Agricola, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is Lavra. Okay, I've been listening to that online, trying to pronounce it correctly. I think it's Lavra, but I might be wrong. But anyway, at least you can see how it's spelled. But this game is one in which you are fishing and getting resources, and it's really the kind of game that I often rail against, because I say, oh, you get cubes for this. But in this one, I like it so much for 2 reasons. One, because when you fish, the fish mean fish. They don't mean blue cubes. And when you get cattle, they mean cattle. They don't mean orange cubes. Well, for one thing, they're not cubes, they're little tiles. But you could change the fish to smoked fish. You can change the cattle to hides and beef. You can change the hides to leather. You know, and there's all these things. And then you get to build all these cool buildings. And as you build the building, when you build the butcher, it's a butcher. When you build these different things, and I love that. But the second reason I like this game so much is because it's so fun to play. It's like an uplifting game. It's an optimistic game. And the reason for that is because you're trying to get the most points you can. But everything you do gets you points. So that's fun. You know, you don't sit there and go, oh. Because there's a lot of games, you know, that when you play them, they're like this. Hey, how's it going? Oh, what'd I do? The game just smacks you around. And at the end, you're like, oh, I survived. And I won. And that might give you glory. You might feel great about that. But I like this one because it's like, here's some candy. Do you want the chocolate candy? Or do you want the now and laters? Or do you want a peanut butter cup? Which, of course, we know is the greatest. You have options in this game all the time. And your options are basically the best. Pretty good. Almost as good. This is pretty good too. And I love that. And so that, for me, is why this game stays so high on my list. Le Havre. The top 10 is next. Is there a new game on the top 10? Is there a game that moved up? There is. Both for very good reasons. You'll see what comes. Will you be surprised by number 1? We'll find out next time. You can find out all these games on thedicetower.com. You can also find my daughter Melody's top 100 list there, and the People's Choice, your choice games. You have some pretty good ones. Are they the same as mine? Well, you'll have to come and see that. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Some say that Tom is like a giant among men. Others say he's a little obsessed.
I don't even have a top 10.
Tom Vasel's top 100 games of all time.